Hey guys, so in this video I just wanted to give you a quick overview of how to deploy the Deepgram transcription service on the Amazon SageMaker platform. So what we can do is to go out to the AWS Marketplace and we can subscribe to a particular product. Currently we have transcription listings for English and Spanish and French, as well as multilingual transcription. So all you need to do is to select the language that you want to subscribe to, and then we're going to simply hit the subscribe button to activate that inside of our AWS account. So if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, you should see a orange subscribe button, and then you can see that inside of your account. So once you've done that, go back to the SageMaker AI console here. So just do a search for SageMaker AI in the AWS Management Console. Then you'll go down to AWS Marketplace Resources and choose Marketplace Model Packages. And then if you click on the tab that says AWS Marketplace Subscriptions, you should see the English speech to text product right here. So you can either just select the radio button there and say Actions, Create Endpoint, or if you click on the product, you may see multiple versions. Right now we just have the initial release, and then you can click on that specific version of the product and say Create Endpoint. Then you'll just want to give this a name. So I'm just going to call this Deepgram 05 for now. And then we'll also add a couple of tags here just so we indicate ownership. That's optional, but I like to do that in shared AWS environments where I'm working with a lot of other team members. And then we're also going to give the endpoint a name. So on the first screen, we imported the model itself into our account. So that'll actually show up as a model over here under deployable models, but you don't need to worry about that. And then we're just going to give the endpoint itself a name. The endpoint is the actual compute resource. And then the endpoint configuration here, we'll just give a unique name as well. If you want to change from the default instance type, which is G62X large, you can scroll to the right and click Edit. And then under instance type, you can say choose other instance type. And there are a few supported instance types right here. So for example, I'll choose G5 2X large to override that. And then if you scroll back to the left, you'll see ML G5 2X large. Then you need to click on the Create Endpoint Configuration button there. And then once that succeeds, you can optionally add some tags for the endpoint resource itself and click on Submit. And then that'll take a couple of minutes to create the endpoint because it needs to create the EC2 instance and pull the container image and start up the Deepgram inference services. If you click on the endpoint resource, you'll see the model container logs right here. That will take you over to the Amazon CloudWatch logs service, and specifically that log group, which does not yet exist. So you'll get this red error right here. But after a couple of minutes, if you just refresh this screen, eventually you will see the log streams down here at the bottom, and it'll have a unique instance ID that's assigned to the EC2 instance for your endpoint resource in SageMaker, and that will contain the actual logs. And then the next thing that we want to do is to actually run an inference script against this endpoint. So you'll want to take note of the AWS region and the name of your endpoint resource itself. And you also, of course, need to have IAM credentials configured as well. That's beyond the scope of what we'll cover in this video. But then what we're going to do is switch over to our script right here. So we've got a sample script that you can find in our documentation at developers.deepgram.com. You can go over to self-hosted deployments, go down to scaling and deployment strategies, and then deploy with Amazon SageMaker AI. And we have a test script here. So under inference, we kind of break down some of the different components of the script, but then we have a complete example right here. So this is a TypeScript script that you'll be able to use, and we're just going to put that in here. And I've got some other TypeScript supporting files right over here, but then what we're going to do is fill out our region. So we're deploying into US West 2, and we also need to go down here to the config and change the endpoint name, which is Deepgram 05. And then we'll just save that. And then for the language here, because I'm using the English model, I'm going to do language EN. And this is, of course, Nova 3. You can also, if you want to, enable diarization. So we can say diarize equals true because we include the diarization model. Of course, you want to make sure your AWS credentials file is configured. If you have a separate any configuration file for your shared credentials, you can use this special environment variable. This is the PowerShell syntax to set an environment variable. And then we're just going to run tsx main.ts. And this particular sample script just allows us to take our microphone input stream. So if I run this, provided that my endpoint is fully deployed here, then we'll be able to see some results. So let's give this endpoint a second to finish creating. And as soon as the status here changes to in service, that means that the service is up and running. And the Deepgram service itself might take another few seconds to initialize. But once that is done, we can go ahead and run inference. All right, so now you see our endpoint is in service right here. So it took about 5 minutes, I'd say, to deploy. If we switch over to CloudWatch here and take a look at our CloudWatch logs group, we can see all of the logs pertaining to our Deepgram service right here. So if we scroll all the way to the top, you're going to see the NVIDIA driver version. You're going to see the model files that we have loaded here. So we've got Nova 3 English. We've got the diarization as well as the named entity recognition model. And so everything's starting up. Everything looks good here. And so now if we switch back over to our script here, we can just run and let's pass in some text just by speaking. So, hello, my name is Trevor from Deepgram, and I am testing out diarized transcription. So as you can see right here, we are getting back these JSON results in real time from our streaming API on the SageMaker platform. So again, if you'd like to deploy Deepgram yourself on the SageMaker service, then you can head out to the AWS Marketplace. You can check out the different language models that we have available through Deepgram, and then you can simply deploy that into your account. So in the Marketplace, if you just search for Deepgram, you can also filter down to the specific publisher here. And if we search for Deepgram right here, we can filter down to the most recent items. And as you can see, we've got Spanish, French, English, and multilingual. So feel free to check it out, and thanks for watching.